Durham Region.
Welcome everyone to the Provincial riding of Oshawa All Candidates Debate. My name is Don Pittman. This event is presented by the Durham Region Association of Realtors, the Durham Region Home Builders Association, the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce. As I said, my name is Don Pittman. I'm your moderator for this evening. There are some rules we like to go over so people can understand what's happening here. Candidates up at the front, they actually drew numbers just before they got here up to the front so that we could figure out who was going to do the opening statement, and it turned out that it ended up that the numbers drawn put it into alphabetical sequence, so by last name, so I thought that was kind of interesting. There's a timer that's sitting out the front here, panelists, and just so you know, we've got these two gentlemen here. You get an opening statement of 2 minutes, and we'll go down the table for that in a minute. And then there's some questions that will come along. We're allowing 2 minutes per person, per candidate, to answer those as well. And we will allow a 30-second rebuttal, but we're trying to keep things fairly tight because there are a lot of questions on the list here. Some of the questions have come from the Durham Region Association of Realtors, some from the Durham Region Builders Association, and some from the Chamber of Commerce. And there's also an opportunity for folks in the audience to write their questions down and to bring them up. So they'll be kind of flowing up to me, and we have a lot. It looks like the cost of electricity is a common theme from what I saw in the preliminary questions here. So, and then at the end, there is a 2-minute closing statement that you have. And I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty easy going, so we'll get started here. We're going to the Progressive Conservative candidate, Bob Chapman. He drew number 1, so Bob, you have the floor for 2 minutes. Just remember that keep an eye on your timing. If I say you're out of time, you're out of time, you're out of time, on the third you're out of time, something's going to happen to your microphone. We don't know what, but something. So Bob, you have the floor, and we'll start the
Thank you, Don, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending tonight. The choice facing Ontario families in the next election will be clear. 4 more years of higher taxes, wasteful spending, or irresponsible deficits from the Liberals and the NDP, or the Ontario PC Party, which respects taxpayers, puts more money in your pockets, and brings fiscal responsibility and jobs back to Ontario. Our 5 pillars are to clean up the hydro mess, which includes reducing hydro rates and stabilizing industrial hydro rates, ending the hallway health care, including $1.9 billion investment in mental health, returning jobs to Ontario, including a corporate tax reduction of 1%, putting money back in your pocket of reduction of taxes to the lowest tax bracket of not paying provincial taxes, and the next tax bracket of less 20% reduction. And of course, we'll restore trust and accountability to Queen's Park, which is dearly lacking from the last 15 years of the Liberal government. My name's Bob Chapman. I'm your PC candidate for Oshawa. I have experience. I'm a lifelong resident of Oshawa. I know Oshawa. The last 8 years I was on council. Prior to that, 31 years with the Durham Regional Police Service, and I've spent 37 years serving our country in the Canadian Armed Forces. I've worked at all levels, including executive levels. I know how to find efficiencies, and I'm fiscally responsible. So I'm looking for your vote on June 7th to vote PC, Bob Chapman, for Oshawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, Jennifer French, you drew next, so you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and my name is Jennifer French, and it has been my distinct privilege to serve this community as the MPP for the past 4 years. It has been a tremendous journey from the beginning, and I'm looking forward to continuing it past June 7th for the people of this community. I love Oshawa. I love Oshawa, and I love everyone that's in it, and I believe that the folks here in Oshawa deserve fair chances going forward, that they deserve opportunity. And right now what we have seen is that people are struggling, whether it's businesses, whether it is families, whether it is students graduating with crippling debt, who can't afford, they can't even imagine buying a home. They can't imagine putting one foot in front of the other and making plans. That is not the Ontario that we deserve. That's not the Ontario that is possible. I am very proud to be sitting here as the NDP candidate with a very strong platform. It is the only fully costed platform that spells out something different, that we don't just have to settle for the same old and, well, the bad and worse and the back and forth. I'm hearing that on the doorsteps, that people are saying the other two options haven't worked. Tell me what you've got. Well, what we've got is a platform that prioritizes people and care, child care, health care, dental care, pharmacare, because it turns out the NDP cares, and so do our community members. Folks in Oshawa and across the province are ready for better. They're ready for that change for better, and I'm very pleased to be running for the NDP here in Oshawa to make that happen across the province and to continue to represent this community authentically and sincerely. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, and McKinney Smith, the Liberal candidate. McKinney, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank the moderator, Mr. Pittman, the Durham Region Association of Realtors, the Oshawa Chamber of Commerce, and the Durham Region Builders Association for their work organizing tonight's event. I also want to thank everyone who's taken the time to come out tonight. Events like these are essential in casting an informed ballot on June 7th, and I'm glad to see a full crowd out to support. I'm new to the world of politics. My background is real estate and personal development. As a full-time realtor for 6 years, I was responsible for building my own success. Every day, I was motivated by my children and my family, and that's also my motivation for running in this election. On June 7th, voters in Oshawa and across Ontario face a historic choice. Do we want to continue to build people up, or do we want to sacrifice what we've achieved together? You're going to hear a lot of numbers tonight, and it's worth remembering that these numbers are programs and services that impact the lives of our neighbors. And when candidates say that they're going to cut billions from our budget, what they mean is that they're going to fire nurses and teachers and slash spending on roads and bridges and schools. Oshawa has prospered under the Liberal government. We have the lowest unemployment rate of any urban area in Ontario. We're building 2 new GO stations, investing millions into Lakeridge Health and creating hundreds of childcare spaces across Oshawa. So I look forward to hearing your questions tonight, and I hope I can count on your support for this election.
Okay, McKinney, thanks very much. All right, so we'll move on to the question portion of this. These questions, each of you has 2 minutes to respond to this question. We will allow a 30-second rebuttal if there's a point that somebody takes issue with. So, McKinney, I'm going to start with you. We're just kind of going to move our way down the table. So this question comes from the Durham Region Association of Realtors. With housing prices rising and demand not slowing down anytime soon, what will your party do to make homeownership more affordable for individuals and families?
Okay, so like I mentioned before, I sold real estate full-time for 6 years. And the most rewarding part of my job was helping families to find their first home. I know firsthand, I watched how families in Oshawa worked to qualify for their mortgage so they could achieve this lifelong dream. And that's why I'm proud that the Liberal government is making homeownership more affordable. We know that young families are worried that they may never be able to purchase a home of their own. So that's why they've introduced the Fair Housing Plan. As part of the Fair Housing Plan, we introduced a non-resident speculation tax to make it easier for people who want to actually live in their homes. We've doubled the tax refund for first-time homebuyers, meaning that young families pay no land transfer tax on a home worth less than $368,000. Everyone deserves a fair place to live and a place to thrive. Our Fair Housing Plan goes a long way in achieving this. Oshawa is a welcoming and inclusive city, and everyone should be able to work towards their own home. I'm proud of the steps that the government has taken to make this dream easier.
Okay, thank you very much, McKinney. Okay, and Bob, we'll go to you next. If you need the question reread, that's perfectly okay, so let me know.
No, I'm good.
All right.
So it's estimated by 2022, the population in the GTA, including the regions around the GTA, such as Durham, will increase by 2.8 million people. This means the supply of housing will have to increase to keep up with the demand. And of course, affordability is related to supply and demand, meaning under normal circumstances, increasing supply reduces demands and should have a desired effect on the affordability of the supply. That said, we need to increase the supply to take tension off demand and helping contain prices. This can be done through a strategic growth plan that prioritizes land use planning supported by policies to increase density, such as along the new GO lines. But once people get into a home, the affordability of buying it now becomes the affordability of maintaining it from your mortgage. We're introducing tax reductions for the first two brackets of the income tax. We're also reducing hydro rates by an additional 12%, two of the main things that affect a household income in their affordability of owning a house and maintaining that house. This is what the Progressive Conservative government will do to help the prioritize and align planning with supply of housing, and in particular, increase density. In our case, we can do it along some of the GO lines throughout our region. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bob. Okay, and Jennifer, you have the floor. 2 minutes.
So the question is about making homeownership more affordable and keeping
With
people
housing
in their
prices rising and demand not slowing down anytime soon, what will your party do to make homeownership more affordable for individuals and families?
Well, a few things. And first, I'm going to take us back in time. When I first bought my house in Oshawa, I had moved from a basement apartment in Oshawa, and I think back then it cost about $650 a month, if you can imagine that. And when I bought my first house, it was a townhouse, about 1,300 square feet, for just under $200,000. And last summer, they were appraised up at around, I think, $500,000, pretty close to that. To imagine that that is the starting point for families, to imagine that that is the starting point for people to get into the market, that is unbelievable. And I was able to have a 40-year mortgage and zero down, if you remember back then. There are not options for people to get into the market as it stands now. We're seeing people priced right out of it, and whether that's first-time home buyers or families, or whether that is seniors wanting to downsize. So a few of the promises from the NDP is that, first of all, we're not going to leave federal money sitting on the table. So Andrea Horvath has committed that we will sign on to the Federal National Housing Strategy. So that will fund 20,000 units of affordable housing, but we are committing to build 65,000 units of affordable housing within our 10 years. So we have the capital plans for the next 45,000 units. And with $3 million to seed co-ops, because we want an array of housing for folks. So another piece of that is the Residents' Rights Act, which I'll talk more about, but giving homeowners the opportunity to build second suites and laneway housing, granny flats. So those are some of the pieces. As we've heard throughout our community, it has to be affordable to stay in your home. Reducing hydro rates by up to 30% for ratepayers is another piece of our plan.
Okay, that's great, Jennifer. Folks in the back row there, is the sound okay in the back row, folks? We're doing all right? Okay, great, thanks. Okay, we'll start this question with Bob Chapman from the Progressive Conservatives. So this is question number 2. This again comes from the Durham Region Association of Realtors. It reads, currently realtors are unable to incorporate their businesses. However, realtors in 6 other provinces, as well as other professions, are able to incorporate. Will you support allowing realtors to incorporate their businesses in Ontario? If not, why?
This is an easy question, Don, because it's simply a matter of fairness. And PC MPP Todd Smith from Bay of Quinte had introduced a private members bill to allow incorporation. And although it moved through second reading at the legislature, the Liberals let it die in committee. Incorporation would allow realtors to manage their business through the ups and downs of the market. And other professions are allowed to incorporate, so why not realtors? One of the things the Progressive Conservative government will do is reduce the red tape and align regulations that allow such things that should be done simply to make it fair. The Liberals talk about fair in everything that they've done, a fair plan for this, a fair plan for that, a fair plan for another thing. But being fair means to reduce some of those regulations and make them align with the business structure, the job creators, the people that are out there paying for the people to work that pay the taxes that we're going to spend properly because we're fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And we will go to Jen next on that.
Thank you very much. So the short answer of will we support or allow realtors to incorporate their business? Yes, absolutely. In fact, as we just heard about the private members bill, my colleague Catherine Fife co-sponsored that bill, the Tax Fairness for Realtors Act, which aimed to make that possible. The commitment from an NDP government is to reintroduce this bill, make it law. It actually died when the Liberals prorogued, and didn't bring it back. But we as a government absolutely will. It's long overdue. So when you look at other regulated professionals that can incorporate, to imagine that a profession that is so connected to the community when it comes to trust and relationships, to be left out of that, that's not fair, and that is our commitment.
Okay, thanks very much. McKinney Smith, go ahead.
I began my real estate career before the housing boom, back when everyone and their grandmother thought it was quick, easy money to get their real estate license. So I know firsthand how hard it is to succeed in real estate. And when I started as an agent, I was giving 30% of my commission to my broker. That was on top of admin fees, licensing fees, insurance fees. There's a whole pile of fees that realtors have to pay. There are some agents out here that have to sell 2 houses a month just to break even. There are some agents who sell way more than that, and for some, it's a full-time career and a very lucrative one. More established agents have decades worth of clients coming to them from referrals. But the average real estate agent in Toronto sells less than half a dozen homes a year. I spoke with some former colleagues of mine recently, and they told me that they're interested in being incorporated. And incorporation normally brings a lot of tax benefits. And for realtors, we're able to write a lot off. And I spoke with some people in the head of Toronto Real Estate Board in the last 24 hours, and they've let me know what the benefits are. So I know real estate is a tough business, and I'm open to any conversation that would make succeeding as a realtor possible.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. And moving on here, everybody had a turn, right? I was just kind of, yeah, you did. Okay, that's great. Durham Home Builders Association question now. And this is going to go to Jennifer French for start. So here's the question. Everyone agrees that Ontario needs more homes to improve affordability. What will your party do to ensure that we can build more homes and have less politics impacting the supply of new housing in communities across Ontario?
Great question. Certainly over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to hear from, I think, many of the folks in this room about density challenges or inventory challenges. But I also hear about it through our community office, that there are not affordable housing options. So whether it is imagining or whether it is planning to buy a new home, or whether it's finding a safe, affordable apartment to rent, moving into a co-op, whatever the vision is, we need to have options. So some of the specifics, we are encouraging an array of options for housing. Townhouses, stacked townhouses, that missing middle piece, we need that here in Oshawa, certainly. But we will use measures as requiring a minimum density in developments along new transit lines, letting municipalities opt out of some of the minimum parking requirements. Some of those parking requirements, of course, are archaic and they are holding us back, and requiring coordinated planning of retail and housing in medium density developments. We are planning, as I mentioned earlier, to work in partnership with municipalities who know what it is that they need, and to work with the professionals in the industry as we create a new Residence' Right Act. And that is so that homeowners can add legal apartments, so second suites, laneway houses, granny flats. This is about options and about opportunities for folks. So we need people to find a place to live and be able to afford to stay in it.
Okay, that's great. McKinney, we'll move up to you, up the table next.
Okay, so let's break down that question. Sure, we can agree that more houses is a part of the solution, but I'm sure we've all heard that tired cliche a million times with real estate. It's all about the location. Building 50,000 homes in Sudbury wouldn't do much to calm the housing market in the GTA. The problem is more and more people are moving to Oshawa and commuting to Toronto every single day. As Toronto filled up, people moved to Pickering. As Pickering got expensive, they moved to Ajax. Then from Ajax to Whitby, and now Oshawa. I know some of the friends that I have live in Curtis and Bowmanville and commute to Toronto every single day. So yes, part of the solution is more places to live, but Oshawa has done well for housing under our government with over 1,700 housing permits issued in 2007. And last year, Oshawa surpassed $600 million in building permits for the first time ever. Oshawa has prospered under the Liberal government. Our Fair Housing Plan allows municipalities to impose a vacant property tax, encouraging developers to build more homes. We also have to acknowledge that building row after row of single-family detached homes would ignore a big chunk of Oshawa's population, which is renters. We've introduced a $125 million fund to encourage construction of purpose-built rental units by rebating a portion of the development charges. Now, at some point, we're just going to turn around. At some point, we're just going to run out of time. So there's only so much houses we can build close to the 401. And just so we're clear, paving over the Greenbelt is not the answer. We can, however, open up land for development through strategic investments, two-way GO train service to Bowmanville, including two new GO stations in Oshawa, which means people can live further from the city without having to spend hours to commute in.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. And Bob Chapman.
Well, I hate to disagree, but I don't think the housing boom that's been in Oshawa has been because of the Liberal government. I think it's been because of the Oshawa Municipal Council, which I was a member of for the last 7 years, and the Oshawa Development Services. We've done well increasing the housing stock, and part of that is because we've reduced the red tape within the municipal government and how developers and builders have to come through the permitting process, and we've reduced a lot of that to get those houses that my colleague here spoke about, the number that is being built, the most successful region in our region of new houses. But we need to do more than that. Part of it is, she talked about the vacant property tax. Well, we wanted to remove that so that people would develop sooner and sell that instead of speculating on that land to buy it now, pay less taxes, property taxes, because it's empty, and then wait until the price goes up to sell it to a developer. We want to get that developed sooner. The other thing is freeing up surplus land, provincial surplus land. There are parking lots, there are brownfields. The greenfield is not going to be touched by the PC party. The Liberals did do some paving over of that, but it's not going to be touched. Our leader has said that. But we need to free up some of the brown spaces and the parking lots that are around that are owned by the province. The federal government did that in Ottawa for affordable housing, and we increased affordable housing in Ottawa by doing that. We need to do similar in Oshawa, and part of that is reducing and realigning the regulations and the policies that prohibit or reduce the improvement and the development of affordable housing in our community.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Folks, I had a note brought up to me. There's actually coffee and water in the back of the room if anybody would like any, so please feel free to help yourself to that. I'm sure some of you will get a little bit dry. I'm blessed with bottles of water up here, and I think the panel's got some hiding up there as well. So let's go on to our next question here. This, again, is from the Durham Home Builders Association. And McKinney, I will start with you on this one, and this is the question. The underground economy continues to negatively impact the renovation sector. Will your party consider introducing a consumer-focused home renovation tax credit so that homeowners can update their homes to match their needs, lower their bills, and use legitimate contractors to fight the underground economy?
Our government has emphasized building people up, removing the barriers that exist in our society, including age. Getting older shouldn't mean your world gets smaller. If our parents and grandparents want to live out their golden years in their own home, they should be able to. And that's why the Liberal government announced the Seniors Healthy Home Program. We are investing $1 billion over 3 years to help seniors maintain and renovate their homes, helping to cover the costs that come with staying independent. To help Oshawa homeowners lower their bills and fight climate change at the same time, we've introduced the Green Ontario Fund. We're investing $337 million to help families across Ontario renovate their homes to save energy. This could be as simple as getting a thermostat to help with the heating and air conditioning cost, or installing new windows to cut on drafts. After my grandmother passed away, my mother had to downsize, and with only one person living in the family home, things got expensive. She definitely didn't want to have to leave her memories, and a condo in Scarborough is a lot cheaper than an old, inefficient home. And I know if the Green Ontario Fund had been around when my mom was forced to downsize, she would have taken advantage and made her home more efficient and cheaper to live in. She'd be still living in our family home today. So with this program, everyone wins. Contractors get work, homeowners save money on their energy bills, and everyone who participates in the Green Ontario Fund is helping fight climate change.
Okay, thanks very much, McKinney. Bob, we'll go up the table to you.
Sure. This is actually a fair idea and merits consideration and study. If it's affordable and demonstrates some ability to help families, small businesses, and our economy. Interesting that my Liberal friend here talks about conservation, hydro conservation. That is added to our hydro bill, by the way, and part of the PC plan is to put those conservation efforts into the general tax levy, as opposed to adding it to the already very, very expensive hydro rates that we have. We will certainly look at this after we actually get to government and do the audit and check out the books and find out exactly what the Liberal government has left us. But I also believe that a plan like this will assist in reducing frauds and scams, because we'll look for legitimate renovators. We all know, and we've all heard the stories now about the person that comes in and is going to fix up a granny suite, as they call them, for the mother-in-law or the mother that needs to stay there. And yes, I can do this, and the whole thing will cost you $25,000. I need $10,000 up front because I need to buy my materials, and we never hear from that person again. No different than the people that want to pay you for your driveway. So a process like this that legitimizes for the renovators that are truly running a proper business out there will also help reduce frauds and scams. Currently, there's no plan for this in the PC. I'll be right up front with you. There's no plan in the PC government plan for this. However, all these issues and consultation and what the public needs, we listen to the people, and if it's affordable, and if it works out that it demonstrates that it provides extra room, extra economy for businesses and families, then we certainly will look at it, and I would be supportive of it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Jennifer French.
Thank you. So I see this question as having a few parts, and I definitely hear the consumer protection side of it. We know that we all have a story we can draw from where someone has been taken advantage of and doesn't have any recourse if they don't have that, HST, and on the invoice they can't protect themselves. So there's the consumer protection side, but also that lowering bills or conserving those two pieces. So the NDP is actually proposing in our fully costed platform, and it is in the plan, that we will introduce a new $50 million no interest and on bill home retrofit program to help people consume less power at home. And why this is different than what you asked about, it's not a tax credit, it is through the utility program so that more folks can benefit. Because when you imagine some of our neighbors who don't have the money to pay up front for that renovation, this is something that will be on their bill over time. So it can be spread out and can be affordable. So while they're realizing the savings and they're paying for that upgrade or that renovation, it balances out, and it's fair so that more people can benefit, which means that we as a community benefit more broadly. Additionally, those rogue well, not contractors, but the folks who are putting themselves forward to do that work, not legitimately, this is incentive for them to qualify as a proper business and to be above board in order to be a part of this program. Another piece of this, of course, is our plan to bring Hydro One back into public hands, to bring rates down by up to 30%, help keep them down. So we are helping folks to reduce their cost of staying in their home.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. So we're moving on to questions now from the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce, and Bob will direct this question to you off the top. With the recent passing of Bill 148 and the rising electricity cost, it's become less affordable for business in Oshawa to succeed. In the Ontario Chamber of Commerce's Vote Prosperity election platform, one of its pillars is building business competitiveness. This pillar provides a variety of recommendations to allow business to succeed in both our community and in the province of Ontario. If elected, what would you do to offset costs for business in Ontario so they can remain competitive?
Good question. Well, we've already committed to, we'll start with the electricity aspect of this. We've already committed to cleaning up the hydro mess, including reducing hydro costs by an additional 12%, by returning the Hydro One dividends to ratepayers and getting rid of the Green Energy Act, which has led most to the global adjustment charges. Well desirable, the NDP plan to buy back Hydro One. I think that horse has left the barn. I think that premiums would have to be paid, and I don't see how we could afford it without adding more and more to our deficit and our debt, if in fact we could buy it back. And once it's bought back, I'm not sure what the advantage is in reducing those rates. There are so many other things that need to do. We all know that the Hydro Board of Directors gave themselves a $25,000 raise today. How nice that was to add on to the $6 million man. But you know, we've committed to doing an audit of what the Liberal government has done over the last 15 years to cost everything, including the hydro, implementing a set of comprehensive policies to establish industrial hydro rates that package in a package of regressive reforms. Because we also need to reduce the industrial hydro rate, not just the residential hydro rate. And the other thing is reducing the corporate tax rate by 1%. People are saying that Ontario has one of the lowest corporate tax rates in the country, but we're not competing with PEI. We're competing with New York, Michigan, who's buying our power cheaper and charging their companies less money in corporate taxes. Therefore, some of our companies are moving there, or some of the companies that would establish here or expanding here wouldn't. And those are the types of things that we need to do. Again, it goes back to a lot of the regulations and policies that affect our businesses and our job creators. We forget that the businesses create the jobs that our people need.
Yeah, you're out of time there, Bob. Thank you very much. Okay, Jennifer French, you're next on the list here.
Thank you. We know that small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and without them, you know, we don't have a bright future. So in terms of the NDP plan for how to support businesses and work with them, the first part of that is to actually be a partner. To be a partner with business, not be a government of shocks and surprises, which would, I think, be a welcome change. We would maintain the 1/3 reduction to the small business tax rate and make the business education tax much fairer. Right now it is not stable or predictable and can vary, I think, up to 15 times depending on where you're doing business. When it comes to hydro, it absolutely is a great idea to bring it back. And I think we own about 47% now. So to be able to get to that 51% and have the biggest voice at the table is not an insurmountable task. It is one foot in front of the other to make that happen so we can make decisions in the best public interest. Public interest, I don't think we would have voted to give those board members those raises. So there's some incentive to have it back in the public fold. But really, to stop gaming with the system, and I think looking at the contracts that are so darned expensive, some of them are coming up for potential renewal, and either we don't renew, or we renegotiate, or we dump them. We keep them or we dump them, but contract to contract, and we figure out what is in the best interest for Ontarians. Ending mandatory time of use, that would make a difference to a lot of our businesses. You know how to run your business, the government doesn't. So telling you what time to draw your power and do what you need to do, we would leave that up to the businesses and end the mandatory time of use. Man, time goes by quickly. And another piece is Ontario spends a lot of money, $6 billion, on goods and services. And so to have a minimum percentage of those purchases would have to come from Ontario small and medium-sized businesses.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer. And McKinney Smith, go ahead.
Ontario's economy is thriving. We've added over 800,000 new jobs since 2008. Ontario has led the G7 in economic growth in 3 straight years. Our unemployment rate is a full 1% lower than the national average. And while we're talking about unemployment, let's not forget, Oshawa has the lowest unemployment of any urban area in the entire province. Actually, let's get bigger. Oshawa is the #1 city in Canada for year-over-year job growth. And since we're at the Realtors debate, let's not forget that Oshawa is the 2nd best city to buy real estate in Canada and the best in the GTA. These numbers paint a clear picture. Our Liberal government is steering Ontario's economy in the right direction. But we can always do better, and we've listened to small businesses, and what they're saying is that the hydro rates were hurting their bottom line. So our Fair Hydro plan is cutting hydro bills by 25% for 500,000 small businesses and farms. To create a competitive business for tomorrow, our government has introduced the Venture Technologies Fund to attract $250 million in investments for homegrown companies that change the way of the world, that the world does business. Our investments have brought our investments have brought quality jobs to Oshawa, but we recognize that sometimes the best thing to do is to get out of the way. That's why our government has committed to removing more red tape costs than we bring in. This has already saved businesses over $150 million since 2011. Ontario's businesses are already competitive, and we're attracting investments and creating jobs, but there's more work to do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, McKinney.
I'd like to
go ahead. Yeah, 30 seconds, Bob.
On a point of it, I think that Oshawa and the region of Durham is succeeding despite the efforts of the Liberal government. I think it's the local government, both locally in Oshawa and the region of Durham, that have made those things possible that my Liberal friend here has spoken about.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Any other comment down the table? No? Okay. All right, Jennifer French, this question comes to you. This is another one from the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce. It reads, an additional pillar of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce's Vote Prosperity platform is to foster job creation. Considering the challenges with the Ontario College of Trades, the ratio of apprentices to skilled workers in Ontario, and the province's skilled mismatch issues, what is your plan to address the skills mismatch and to keep our skilled workers in the Oshawa region?
Thank you. Excellent question. I think that our workforce and our educated workforce is one of the greatest advantages that we have in our economy, in our global economy. And part of that, we have to focus on the lifelong learning piece. And so when you're looking at our community of workers, sometimes it's second career or back to work, or it's after injury, but people need retraining, they need skills updates, they need opportunities. And those opportunities have to be affordable. I'm going to point out that the Auditor General's 2016 report was scathing when it said that the majority of people who engage in retraining programs through Employment Ontario do not come out the other side of that retraining and secure employment in their chosen field. Well, that is a problem. The report also said that less than half of the people in the province complete their apprenticeships. So that's the landscape that we have, and to address that, I think we need to take a look at the fact that we have the lowest per student post-secondary funding in Canada for the last 6 or 7 years, and we have to invest. We have to properly fund college programs and encourage more people into the trades, encouraging women as well. We want to see more equity there, and I think when our plan to expand the community benefits agreements to include apprenticeships in that, that's a big piece of that. Oh, there's so many thoughts on this. But work-integrated learning, co-ops, all of these pieces help to keep people in their community, get them connected, hands-on learning, and have them stay here. Our childcare piece to encourage women into different workforces, to invite them back in. All of these pieces have to fit together, and we're committed to that.
Okay, thanks very much, Jennifer. McKinney, go ahead.
Oshawa has a tremendous advantage in attracting and retaining skilled workers, our colleges and universities. Trent, Durham College, and UOIT all attract the best and the brightest, not just from across Ontario, but around the world. I was at Trent just last week, and I saw the psychologists and sociologists of tomorrow. Touring the ACE wind tunnel earlier this month, I met the engineers who moved to Oshawa just to work in this cutting-edge facility. Oshawa's post-secondary institutions attract top talent, and it's our job to create a city that they want to build their career in. That's why our government's $132 million investment in student success is so crucial. We're boosting the number of STEM graduates by 25%, creating the workforce tomorrow's employers need. We're investing a further $30 million to boost the capacity of our colleges and universities so they can provide in-demand training. As amazing as our college and universities are, they're not the only option available. Apprenticeships provide hands-on, rewarding experiences for tomorrow's trade professionals. Over the past 3 years, Ontario's apprenticeship system has trained over 200,000 people. To build on this success, we're investing $170 million over 3 years in Ontario's new apprenticeship strategy. This will provide continuing education to trade professionals and improved information about the trades to high school students. Ontario's greatest asset is our workforce. With investments in our colleges, universities, and apprenticeships, our Liberal government is investing in Oshawa's future.
Okay, McKinney, thanks very much. Bob Chapman.
One of the reasons we have such a low unemployment rate in Oshawa and the central Oshawa district is because of the skilled labor that we have and the type of people that are here. Our educational facilities, Durham College, Trent, and UOIT. But this is more about the actual skills trade that we need to have. And one of the things is that the apprenticeship system needs to be modernized, support the growing demands for skilled labor or skilled trades in Ontario. Much of what is used in the apprenticeship programs today is outdated, and it's a burden to both the apprentice and the company that they work for when they're hired to do their apprenticeship out in the field. Another big step would be to revise the journeyman person to apprentice ratio. Currently, it's at 1:1, one journey person to an apprentice. Whereas other provinces have expanded that, sometimes on a per project basis, where more apprentices can be supervised properly by that journey person to get their skills that they need in that time frame in order to become a journey person on their own and do the work that they're required. Some of the work around Oshawa and Durham region we take is the nuclear plants. A lot of skilled labor is going into our nuclear plants. It's unfortunate that the NDP want to denuclearize us instead of us staying nuclear, which is a big economy thing for Durham region. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, this is to all candidates. This is the first question from the audience. And McKinney, I'll start with you on this one. It says, in the 1990s, we were told privatization would reduce hydro costs through innovation and competition. How do you interpret the results of the past 20 years?
So I'll just be completely honest with you. As a new candidate, I'm not here to defend, the 14 years of, what the Liberals have done and what everyone is upset with hydro. I do spend a lot of time talking to people at the doors, and hydro is definitely a concern of theirs. And I'm listening to what it is that they need and bringing that back to the table at Queen's Park.
Okay, very good. Bob Chapman.
It hasn't worked very well, let's be perfectly honest. And when we see it with such things as the board of directors giving themselves a $25,000 raise, that to me is not a success story. or the fact that with the Liberal government knowing it, the $6 million CEO had to sign a contract that says if he's terminated because of a change in government or something like that, he's going to get an additional $10 million. Not so good. So the privatization has not worked well. Remember that the Liberals made no mention of their plans to sell Hydro One during the 2015 election campaign. But as soon as they won, they flip-flopped their support from public ownership.
Okay, and Jennifer.
Well, I have lots of thoughts. So thank you for the opportunity and for the question. Let's go back a little bit further than the Liberals' decision to sell off Hydro One. You know, the privatization game started with the Conservatives, and we saw power rates increase straight out the gate and continue to rise. And this Liberal plan to, I think they said, broaden the ownership, which is malarkey, considering we all owned it originally. You can't get much broader than all of Ontario. And now we have it in private, under private control. So, you know, to Bob's point about these raises that we don't like, we don't approve of, if it was still in public hands and public control, these would not be decisions that could be made. $6 million salary, these are not things that would happen if it was still public control in the public domain. So the last 20 years, we have seen rates shoot up. We have lost control of a public asset that we should have been strengthening and improving. And that's why our plan to bring it back under public control is the right decision, where we can make decisions for the public interest, because we have to bring rates down. And I will remind everybody that Sir Adam Beck was not a New Democrat, but he believed in affordable public power for business and for homeowners, for every farm across across the province, that everyone deserved to have affordable public power so that we could all reach our potential, whether that's a business or whether it's a family that can actually keep the lights on and keep the fridge plugged in. And right now things are so bad, we have families that are being disconnected this spring who can't keep their fridge running. So what does that look like? That's the wrong thing. That's what the last 20 years looks like.
Okay, thanks very much, Jennifer.
Don, just
yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, just on that. Well, like I said before, well, having it in public hands would be desirable, and it should never have been sold, and I won't dispute that. But we have to live within where we are right now, and what we need to do is fix up the mess as to why we have all those high hydro costs, such as the Green Energy Act and the money we're paying for those windmills that produce power, and we sell it cheaper. We have to give it away, or we have to pay people to give it away. So I'm not convinced that bringing it back into public hands at a very, very high cost to increase deficit and debt is a good idea.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Jennifer, you had a comment?
Yes, of course. So first of all, Doug Ford has said that he would would leave no stone unturned when it comes to privatizing, which is the wrong direction, as I have said, especially when it comes to hydro. And if you are going to layer in profits and the obligation to shareholders into what we have to pay as ratepayers, that is problematic, and back to the original reason why, yes, it should never have been sold off, but why we need to have it and keep it. And in terms of fixing the problem, the Liberals sold it off, and Doug Ford and the Conservatives have said, well, we're just going to keep doing what they're doing. We're going to stay that course. That doesn't change things for the better.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other comments? We'll move on to the next question. Bob, this question is going to you. It reads, how will your party ensure that there is a healthy environment in Ontario for our future?
Healthy environment? You mean the actual environment or a healthy environment?
I'm just reading what's come from, I think we are probably talking about the environment that we live and breathe in. So.
Well, there's no dispute that the cap and trade and the carbon tax is costing taxpayers a lot of money, right? And we're going to get rid of the cap and trade and the carbon tax. But we believe that the environment that is associated with that, the greenhouse gas in that, can be fixed, not fixed, but can be reduced through innovation and putting more thought and more emphasis on the innovation on reducing those greenhouse gases. Right now, a carbon tax does not do anything to reduce the greenhouse gases, and especially the cap and trade. We cap you, You meet that cap and you want to exceed it, you trade off and you buy some other emissions that you can have, and who pays for that? Your consumers pay for that, because the businesses aren't going to absorb those millions of dollars. They're going to pass it on to the consumer, i.e. the taxpayer.
Yeah, very good. Okay, McKinney? I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Okay, so making sure that we have a healthy environment for our future, I will also assume that this is sort of a climate and community-based question, and we're very fortunate in Oshawa to have places like Second Marsh and McLaughlin Bay that not only can we point to as being special places in our community, but we all have a sense of what it means to be environmentally responsible and sustainable. We're not going to abandon the carbon tax, but we are going to reevaluate what that looks like in terms of transparency, because the Liberals brought it in and we have no idea if that revenue that's coming in, if it really is making things cleaner and greener and better. That is a problem. If we have to have that transparency, and green initiatives have to be a priority. And we have to have our businesses and everyone involved in the community not just doing their part, but being resourced so that they can do their part. With the Conservatives and Liberals, you'd think that green energy was a dirty word because of how expensive those contracts are. And if Market's here and we're paying contracts at a ridiculous rate because it was a good idea for some corporate friend or banker buddy, that's why, back to the original point I made, we want to reevaluate, renegotiate, and dump some of those contracts as they come up. Because we want to be able to invest in green technologies and initiatives. This is Oshawa. We have great technology and innovation happening right here in our community. But if we don't have the space, to actually include some of those ideas and adopt some of these clean and green technologies, we're missing real opportunities. So we need to ensure that that we can.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks very much. McKinney Smith, go ahead.
We know that climate change exists. It's more than just a threat to the environment, but a threat to our lives with the more and more extreme weather events that keep occurring. Our plan to make polluters pay by capping the amount of greenhouse gas businesses emit. We're investing every penny of revenue cap and trade generates back into green projects. This includes $200 million to upgrade schools to be more energy efficient, $100 million to support homeowners making their homes more energy efficient, and $100 million to support businesses reducing their emissions.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much. Bobby, did you have a comment? No? Okay. I saw your eyebrows go up and I kind of thought maybe you did. Okay, this will start, this question goes to Jennifer. It's very brief. This won't take 2 minutes. How long have you had a principal residence in this riding?
That's a great question. So like I said, when I was first renting, I rented here for about 1.5 years in a basement apartment. And then I was able to buy my very first house, and that is, let's see, my mortgage was up to 5-year terms, so I think I'm in year 11 now.
Okay,
yes.
Very good. Okay, McKinney?
I moved to Durham Region 10 years ago, and just about 3 years ago, closer to the Oshawa Centre.
Yeah, okay, very good. And Bob Chapman?
62 years I've lived in Oshawa as my primary resident, both as a young boy and with my family. The only time I've been away from Oshawa is the 3 years I was in the regular army.
Is that right? Okay, very good. And I didn't think you were even 62. Jen, go ahead.
Well, since we're playing that game, I'm going to be 40 2 days before the election. And also, I am not from Oshawa. I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could. And I'm pleased to draw from my experience.
Okay.
Happy birthday, Jennifer.
Yeah, happy birthday. We'll sing happy birthday to you later on. How's that? So.
No, not yet.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, this one is on poverty and the homeless. And McKinney, I'm going to put this question to you for starters. It says, poverty is real and having a profound effect on health. What is the plan that your party has to address the needs of our communities, those living in poverty and those on the streets homeless with challenges?
Okay, well, poverty is definitely an issue, an area of concern, and I've seen that very much so while I'm out canvassing in South Oshawa. You see, a lot of people who are dealing with drug addictions and people laying certain places where it's not safe for, children and seniors. to be quite honest with you, majority of what I've been doing for the last 2 months is knocking on doors and listening to what the Oshawa residents need. There's a lot of politicians that make up a lot of policies, but they don't speak to the actual people that need them. So I'm just going to continue to knock on doors and listen to what the residents want.
Okay, McKinney, thanks very much. Bob, up to you.
Well, one thing is for sure that Oshawa is a caring city. We have lots of agencies and resources that work with the people that you're talking about, those in poverty and those with mental health issues. And sometimes the two of them go together, and with addiction. And one of the things is our platform is $1.9 billion to match the $1.9 billion that the federal government has given for mental health, to work towards addiction, supportive housing, and we believe that mental health issues should be addressed similar to physical health. You need to look after them. When you go to the Oshawa Hospital, they've now, in the last little while, created a 12-person mental health unit in their emergency room, because what's happened is people come in with emergencies, some of these homeless folks, and they need to be dealt with, but some of it is because of some mental health issues that are a strain. We've worked at the region trying to develop a mobile health unit to try to combat the opiate crisis that we have. We are not free from it here in Oshawa, and some of that is getting some addiction counselors, some nurses that can look after them, some more medical, full medical, because people that are addicted to drugs, from my experience as well as a police officer, is that when they're ready to come off the addiction, you need to have the help there. It's sort of a, all of a sudden, you know, it's an epiphany that I need to do this now. And if you don't have some of those resources in place, then they aren't going to do that. They'll go back to their own ways.
Okay, very good, Bob. Thanks. And Jennifer.
Okay, so the question was specifically about poverty and homelessness?
Can you reread it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Poverty is real and having a profound effect on health. What is the plan your party has to address the needs of our communities, those living in poverty and those on the streets homeless, with these challenges?
Thank you. Well, it is a complex matter because certainly in Oshawa and communities across the province, people are struggling. They're struggling with affordability. We know that our hospitals across the province are overcrowded. Certainly we have that here in Oshawa. In the Liberal budget, interestingly, they didn't even mention childhood poverty once in the budget, and that is something of significant interest to us here in Oshawa. The Healthy Neighborhoods report that came out that highlighted the massive need in our community to address poverty issues, and certainly our childhood poverty. We have to focus on that. We talked about affordable housing. I talked about affordable housing, the 65,000 units, but also specifically 30,000 units of supportive housing, and that is massive. That means that people can get the care and support where they live to help them participate safely and successfully in their community with the resources and supports that they need. As I've been knocking on doors and as I've been spending time in the community the past 4 years, dental care is a massive issue and should not be a partisan one. It shouldn't matter where you live. You should have access to dental care. So part of our plan with dental care and pharmacare is going to allow folks to live more healthfully in their community and keep them out of the hospitals. Right now, if you go to the hospital with dental pain, you're going to be given painkillers. That does not get to the root of the problem. Pun not intended, sorry. But also, when it comes to dental care, if you can actually treat the issue, you'll keep them out of the hospital hallways, and that's a big part of it. So working with the communities and ensure that they can be healthy and safe.
Okay, thanks very much, Jen. And I know no pun intended, it just happens that way sometimes, right? Okay, this one's under the heading of business/workforce, and Bob, we'll start this question with you. So question one, in a recent survey, local businesses have identified challenges in hiring employees with the proper skill sets that they need. They further believe it will be increasingly more difficult in future. What is your plan or strategy to ensure that the Durham region has the skilled workforce required to ensure the effective operation and prosperity of our businesses and the region?
But I think that goes back to the question that the Chamber asked about our apprenticeship program and the skills trade. And some of that is making the education available, like at Durham College has that excellent skills trade center that they have over in Whitby to do all sorts of different skilled trades. And I think it's being supportive of those facilities and making sure that the people that want to go there are able to go there, and working with those colleges to make sure that they're successful.
Okay, very good. Jennifer?
Yes, and I've answered part of this before, and one of the things that I didn't have the chance to mention is that we would create a fund within the Jobs and Prosperity Fund to create opportunities for mid-career education, so offering training for people who are working and those who are between employment. That's something I didn't say earlier, but the reason I want to highlight it is because yesterday Doug Ford said that he would eliminate the Jobs and Prosperity Fund. I don't know if that's really what he meant. Maybe Bob can enlighten us. I haven't seen it written down, but I think that enhancing the Jobs and Prosperity Fund is a piece of that. Funding the programs that need to be happening at our colleges and universities, but our post-secondary pathways, that needs to be in partnership with our employers, but with our schools, with our employers, with industry, with our trade unions, and all of those folks need to help identify how to develop new opportunities for apprenticeships or for those skills pathway. If we're not listening to businesses, if we're not listening to industry, then we're not going to have the appropriate workforce. And this is such a changing time that we live in. I don't just mean in terms of government, but I mean when you look ahead at the future and you imagine innovation, we have to have workers coming into those jobs prepared. And so that feedback, creating those programs is key. And I had mentioned the community benefits agreement. So any time that we have an infrastructure project, those community benefits agreements are excellent to be able to ensure that our community benefits and expanding those with the community involvement so that we can meet the needs of our communities.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks very much. And McKinney Smith, go ahead.
So I'll have to agree with Bob in terms of working with the schools that are already here in Durham Region with Trent and Durham College and UOIT in order to continue to provide in-demand training. So like I'd mentioned before, that we're already investing the $30 million to boost the capacity of our colleges and universities. So again, like I said, to agree with Bob's point in working with the colleges and universities here.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Okay, question number 2. Jennifer, I'm going to start with you on this one. It reads, operating grants and tuition fees for the college system have fallen every year since 2007-08, resulting in a cumulative shortfall of more than $900 million. The college sector has not been provided with the funding to cover inflationary cost pressures, unlike hospitals and schools. Further, the new college funding model does not fund enrollment growth, yet population growth projections for Durham Region are significant. What steps will you take to ensure that the Durham College will be able to accommodate its enrollment growth? And Jennifer, that's for you to start with.
So I'm very pleased to see some of the folks here from Durham College and from our post-secondary community, because in Oshawa we are really blessed to have such a fantastic academic sector. And when I've had the chance not just to tour and see the campuses and see the programs, but to sit down and meet with them about the struggles, this struggle is real. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, for about the past, I think, 6 or 7 years, that we have the lowest per student funding. That can't be allowed to continue because our students deserve the best education that they can, and we have institutions who are ready to provide it, but I don't think have had that partner at the table that's willing to work with them. When I recently toured Durham College, I was able to see the potential there and to hear their goals, and so I'm looking forward for our government to be the partner. I know the question was a bit more specific, and I'm looking forward to the rebuttal section so I can have those exact numbers, but we will be working with Durham College and UOIT to ensure that they have a path forward that they can plan and can actually budget, because right now with the cross their fingers and hope that they qualify, that's not a way to plan their programming or for their students to benefit the most.
Okay, McKinney?
Just last week, I had the opportunity to tour Trent, Durham College, and UOIT and listen to their concerns and what their issues are. So although our government has increased education funding every year that we've been in office, I would work really hard to advocate for the needs of the colleges to get them what they need.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. Bob Chapman.
You know, for a long time, Durham Region has been the poor cousin to the GTA, where we haven't received appropriate funding or appropriate support on a number of things. And some of that is the colleges. We have 4 institutes here. We have Trent University, we have UOIT, we have Durham College, and we have Queen's facility in the hospital, actually, that teaches new doctors. And one of the things that needs to be done is this all needs to be reviewed. And this is part of where has the money been going? Is there money that was wasted? Is there efficiencies that need to be found so that more money can be put to where it should be? And in this case, as the question dictates, is to our universities and colleges in the local area.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. This is a question from the Durham Northumberland chapter of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. Interestingly enough, it looks like there's just a tiny little blood smear on the bottom left of this. I guess they're really busy. They must have written this at work and sent it along.
Or signed it in blood.
Yeah, signed it in blood. That's right. So this actually, McKinney, this will start. Be your question to start with. It says, what will healthcare and the healthcare system look like 4 years from now if your party is elected on June the 7th?
Okay, thank you. Great question. If elected June 7th, well, since taking office, we've added more than 6,000 doctors and 28,000 more nurses. So we understand that that's a start. But we would actually look into what the needs are at the hospitals so that we can add and advocate for what else is needed in the hospitals.
Okay, that's fine. Bob, your thoughts on the question?
In 4 years, healthcare will be improved. And one of the things is when you look at, let's take a hospital. So you got the ambulance that brings a patient in from out on the street for whatever reason. And they get delayed there because there's no offload nursing in order to put them into the emergency. Then when they do finally get into the emergency and the ambulance goes away, in emergency there's not a lot of room. Some of these folks are in stretchers in the hallways because there's people in emergency that can't be released to go home, and there's no beds upstairs for them to go. Then you go upstairs to the some 250 beds that the Oshawa Hospital has that has people there that don't really need to be there sometimes. They can go home. A lot of them are elderly. They can go home, but the personal support worker program isn't sufficient enough to look at them at home. Or there isn't enough long-term care beds for them to be discharged to. And part of our platform is that 3,000 long-term care beds every year for the next 5 or every year for the next 10, depending on how you want to look at it. We have a panel headed by a prominent doctor with nurses to tell us. People talk about the PC's efficiencies being cuts. You can make efficiencies without making cuts to people, without making layoffs. I've done it both at the city and both in the Army and in the police. And part of that will be this panel will tell us what we need to do to make our health care better. Add into that the $1.9 billion for mental health, for addiction, for mental health services, and for supportive housing that goes with that. And I think our healthcare system will be much improved than what it is today.
Okay, Bob, thanks very much. Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll stick with us first, and then I have a chance to do a rebuttal.
Sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to healthcare, the NDP absolutely believes that everyone has the right to healthcare when they need it. Our waiting lists are unbelievable. We would increase hospital funding immediately by 5.3% with a new $916 million additional investment. They've been frozen for far too long, and that is not in the best interest of anyone's health. putting $19 billion over 10 years into hospital capital expansion, creating 2,000 new hospital beds right now. We have committed to ending hallway medicine. We would stop further layoffs of nurses and frontline healthcare workers. We need to give them the resources and tools that they deserve. When it comes to long-term care in our hospitals, right now we have alternate level of care. We have ALC in our hospitals taking up space, and people are literally in long-term storage because there isn't the long-term care available, which is heartbreaking. So we would create 40,000 more long-term care beds, including 15,000 new beds over the next 5 years, and setting standards, minimum standards, 4 hours of hands-on care as a minimum. We've committed to that. We've also committed to a find and fix inquiry, not waiting 5 years of not doing a whole bunch of, what am I trying to say? We're going to do a find and fix approach, which is we look at long-term care, and as we identify issues, we take them on now. We don't wait 5 years to fix things and do some report. We have to have patients at the center of this. Healthcare has to be about care, and I cannot understand how, okay, am I out of time? I'll come back to that in the rebuttal. Rebuttal?
Okay, all right. You can rebut now, yeah. You're rebutting Bob's comment, were you?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I would love to know how a leader who has said that they're going to find 4 cents on every dollar and $6 billion in cuts are the wrong direction. And if we're going to say that people are not going to lose their jobs, that is nonsense. But if those efficiencies are going to be incontinence products or the absolute cheapest tubing that can be found that isn't going to connect, and we're just going to have, we don't want our healthcare to get further into chaos. What we need to see is investment. What we need to see is commitments. What we need to see is minimum standards of care. What we need to see is reduced waiting lists, and that has to be purposeful, and it needs a plan. And we have a fully costed plan, and it's all laid out, and I encourage everyone to check it out.
Okay, Bob, you want to speak to that?
Yes, yes, for sure. Everybody is suggesting that efficiencies means cuts. The only cuts it means is to find that $6 billion. Efficiencies can be found in many different ways, and not by cheapening the supply train, as was suggested by my NDP colleague here. There's lots of waste in government. There's lots of efficiencies to be found. I've seen that both in my military career, my police career, and within the city of Oshawa, when we made a lot of efficiencies without cutting any staff and without cutting any service.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll move on to the next question then here. This is another one, healthcare long-term care beds. Jennifer, I think you were just speaking to this, but Bob, I'll start this question with you. It says, what about the healthcare system? There is not enough long-term care beds or home care services for seniors to stay at home. What's the plan for the baby boomers?
Well, the plan is 15,000 new long-term care beds, 3,000 a year basically for the first 5 years, makes 15,000 up to 30,000 for the second 10 to start off with. Plus, we need to review the personal service workers and how they do that. And some of the efficiencies that can be found there is in how they do their administration, so that we have more of those workers on the front line to look after those people that actually need it now and will need it in the future, given what you're talking about with the question of the baby boomers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's doable.
Okay, very good. Jennifer?
Okay, thank you. As I had mentioned the numbers, our commitment is to create 40,000 more long-term care beds by the year 2028, including 15,000 new beds over the next 5 years. We have more people on the waiting list than there are spaces in this area. So back when it came to Harris, and we cut, and then we froze funding for the LHINs in our different regions, we were frozen in time, and it's never been reevaluated. We are a growing area, and the funding has never been reevaluated. There hasn't been more money coming in. We've been frozen. That's a huge problem. So there isn't space for people, which is why we have seniors and people that we love and care about who are in ALC or that alternate level of care without a space to go. And if they are still at home with the home care system or hodgepodge that we have, different privatized services, it is not it isn't the continuity of care that our seniors deserve or that our baby boomers could possibly look forward to. So we need to ensure, as I mentioned, the find and fix approach with long-term care, to look at it systemically and address issues as we find them. We need to have minimums that are achievable for those frontline workers. We can't just hire more and give them more to do. We have to pay them fairly. We have to set minimum standards of care, the 4 hours of hands-on care. That's what that would mean to a resident, what that would mean to a senior is dignity. Because when they're rushed through their day and there's no one to lift them or take them to the facilities, and forcing incontinence on them, and all of these indignities that can be avoided if we actually prioritize our seniors in our care, that is certainly not just a part of our platform, but that is a part of our values makeup.
Very good. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, this one, Jennifer, I'm going to start this question with you, or just rotating as we go. This is to do with
I didn't get to respond.
Sorry?
I didn't get to
Oh,
respond.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll keep it short and sweet. We've added or redeveloped over 25,000 long-term care beds. The last time the NDP was in power, they shut down 24% of all long-term care beds.
Okay. Response, Jen? Anything? No? Moving on?
I'm really looking forward to being government and making all of the changes for the better.
Okay, very good. Okay. Sorry, McKinney, I didn't mean to step over top of you there. There we go, thanks. Okay, this one is about debt, the white elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, apparently. So, and Jennifer, this will start with you. It says Ontario has the lowest unemployment in the country. It also has the highest debt of any non-national government in the world. How long is this sustainable?
How long is that sustainable, or how do I see the future and potential?
I would gather, how long is the debt sustainable?
Well, I'm going to tell you about some of our plans as government. We want to make investments that are going to make life better for everyone. We do have in our fully costed platform, we do have a fiscal framework. And when you take a look at that, especially our first 5 years as government, you're going to see that investment, and then you're going to see as we as a society benefit, and the trajectory for our debt and deficit will be on the downward trend, because when you invest in our communities, when you invest in pharmacare, you're going to reap that reward. You're going to be able to strengthen and invest in our different services. So we would ensure we're planning to bring money in and actually take a look at revenue in a purposeful way. It's not just about cutting, it's about bringing new money in, and it's time. We have to invest. We have to have stronger services. So responsible taxation for those who can pay a bit more and pay their fair share, protecting the middle class, protecting protecting our middle income households, and asking those to pay a little bit more, bring that in, some luxury taxes on vehicles over 90,000. Some of those avenues are going to help to not just bring it down, but to be responsible government going forward.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Jen. And McKinney?
Ontario continues to be a safe investment. We lead the country in direct foreign investment. We've made a deliberate choice to invest to fund the largest infrastructure in Ontario's history, to boost healthcare spending by 5%, to expand free tuition, to bring in childcare, and we have a lot more to do.
Okay, very good. Bob?
Well, we know that the Liberal government is planning deficits for the next, 1,000 years to get the debt up, and we know that they said it was $6 billion, and the Auditor General came back and said more like $12 billion, making our debt, by the time there's a next election in 4 years, almost $400 billion. The NDP aren't far behind them with the amount of deficit that they want to do, and both of them put it under caring for the people of the province. But what the PC party wants to do is create jobs, bring manufacturing jobs, bring other jobs that increases our tax base from the business world and the industrial world that hires people that then pay taxes. on top of reducing taxes for the lowest income bracket of not paying any provincial taxes to the next income bracket of reduction of 20%. But working towards that balanced budget almost immediately in order to start paying down that over $1 billion a month cost it cost us to pay off on our debt, so that we can reduce it as opposed to add to it in the next 4 years, so that my great-great-great-grandchildren aren't paying for that debt.
Very good. Okay, Bob, thanks. Any responses, comments there? Jen's kind of thinking.
I do, but it wasn't so much a rebuttal to Mr. Chapman as it was if we're kicking the can down the road in terms of debt. We've just seen that with the Fair Hydro plan. That is not our plan. We believe in being upfront and investing. We want fair taxes for the wealthiest of corporations, lower taxes for small business, and we want to make sure that, as I said, we have responsible revenue streams.
Okay, all right. I kind of will stay focused on that. So, okay, McKinney, this is coming to you, this one. It's another one that talks about the problem of poverty in the province here and in the region as well. So I'll read it directly as it was written. The problem of poverty was raised this evening. I would like to know if the candidates will support increasing the minimum wage from $14 to $15. Goes on, because of the cost of food, vegetables, meat, fruit, so on and so forth, have increased 7 to 9%. People are working 2 to 3 jobs in their families. Children and elderly, are using soup kitchens and food banks. And that's actually from Angela Cooper Braithwaite. She's the president of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. So, McKinney, that's yours to start with.
Okay, so I definitely support increasing minimum wage to $15. There are very little people that I know that can survive and thrive off $15 an hour. So I definitely support that.
Yeah, okay. Bob Chapman, your thoughts?
No, we're not going to increase the minimum wage. I mean, that's well known, and my two colleagues here can attack that if they want. But part of the thing is the last 15 years of the Liberal government, we haven't seen those wage increases. Do I believe that $15 an hour is a good wage for some people, or more? Do people deserve that? Yes, but it's the effect we have on our job creators too, and it's not about giving our job creators a break in this case. A lot of people in small businesses that did that big jump from $11.60 to $14 an hour have had to redefine their businesses. They've had to work more hours themselves. They've had to reduce staff or reduce hours. They've had to increase costs to their customers and or reduce services. What our plan is for those people that are in that minimum wage first tax bracket is to give them no provincial tax. They won't pay any provincial tax. And I know my colleagues are going to say, well, they'll make $2,000 at 15 and they'll only make a little less than 900. But the trick is that won't put any more problems or any more pressure on our small businesses of a chance of perhaps losing more jobs and having more people out there into the poverty area because they don't have a job, as opposed to having one at $14 an hour without paying provincial sales tax or provincial taxes, income taxes.
Okay, thanks very much, Bob. And Jennifer French, your thoughts?
Thank you, and I'm glad to answer this and be on the record that certainly the NDP has worked alongside our community advocates who have been advocating for a $15 minimum wage, and we will maintain that. It's interesting that in this area we had a Trillium sponsored program that calculated our living wage in this region to be $17 an hour, and that $17 an hour is what it would cost a family to make ends meet and be able to sleep at night. And $15 is about a fair wage for the work done, and we believe that everyone deserves that fair minimum wage. We recognize that affordability is an unbelievable challenge for many. We also respect that this has been a real struggle for our community businesses, and I've been glad to work with the Chamber and work with our businesses and respect that, and we'll work with them going forward as government to find offsets and ensure that you can run a predictable business and budget and make plans. But we do want all of the members of our community, everyone earning a decent wage, to be able to participate in their community, their economy, to shop at our businesses, to eat at our restaurants, to actually avail themselves of the businesses and services. And certainly that's what a fair wage would allow them to do.
Okay, thanks very much. Go ahead, McKinney.
I have a rebuttal to Bob, actually. We know that businesses are struggling in the short term, and that's why we brought in a $500 million new initiative to support small businesses in Ontario, including lowering the small business corporate tax rate by 1%. But Doug Ford's plan to scrap the minimum wage increase in favor of a tax return would leave minimum wage earners with $1,100 less in their pocket. So that plan benefits the big business, but not the little people.
Okay, McKinney, thanks very much.
Well,
comment, Bob? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's about keeping the people working as well, and I think we have to realize that for the small businesses as well, as keeping the people working and what those business pressures are in their the amount of revenue that they get to the amount of payout that they have.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Bob, this will go to you. This is related to the east and west downlinks of the 407. It says, will you cut tolls or eliminate tolls on link highways 412 and 418? I think in the beginning, those downlinks were, everybody thought they were going to be free rides up to the 407. Turned out that wasn't the case. What are your thoughts on that?
Do I believe there should be tolls there? No. Am I prepared to commit on behalf of the party that we would take away the tolls? No. Would I commit to looking at them and advocating for them to be reduced or taken off? Yes.
Okay, very good. And Jennifer, your thoughts?
I don't have to tell anyone in this area what the 407 has meant to us in terms of traffic and changes. The 407 extension is, when you look at your bill and you see how inexpensive that piece of it is versus the 407 that was, I don't know, sold off by, I think it was the Conservatives. But we're going the wrong direction when we are making transit less affordable for people. Everyone in this area was surprised when the 412 and the future 418, when it was decided that that they were going to be toll roads. And what we have heard at our traffic town hall on Harmony Road, we're finding that the traffic is unbelievable. The noise, the traffic, that the 412, it's actually a deterrent. The fact that the tolls are on there, it's a deterrent. People are taking Harmony instead. They're taking many of the other north-south roads. To imagine that the government thought it was a good idea to target just Durham region with the 412 and the 418, that's not right. It's not fair, and nobody thinks it is. But it speaks to the fact that we haven't been a priority for this government as a region, as a growing region, and it isn't. The decision to have those told, you see the communities rise up. There's a Free the 412 movement. The community is begging for that, and so I am happy to invite Andrea to this region to check it out, and we're looking forward to having that conversation with the community. Okay,
very good. McKinney Smith.
Definitely open to having a conversation and listening to what the constituents of Oshawa need and doing what's best for them in terms of the 407 and bringing that to the table at Queen's Park.
Okay, thanks very much. Jennifer, this is going to you. Another one from the audience. It's about reducing the debt. It's been said that the government is cash-strapped, which is the biggest reason, what is the biggest reason for, or reasons, and what is your government's plan to correct this to reduce the burden on this and future generations?
So I think the future generations piece is what we all have to focus on, because making these decisions that we have been seeing for the last how many years in the short term is not working for us, but also it's going to keep our youth from working in the future, from having opportunities. I had already mentioned the I say fair hydro plan loosely, but it was that, renegotiating the terms of that debt, and we're going to see our hydro rates kick up right back after the election. It was sort of that artificial lowering of that cost, and we're going to see our youth and our future having to be responsible for that. That's just one example. So when we look at more broadly It's not just what we owe, it's what we're not bringing in. We have to be bringing in, we have to talk about revenue. All I've heard from the Conservatives is, you know, cut this, cut that, cut this, cut that. Where is the money coming in from? When we're selling off Hydro One and things like that, we're cutting off those revenue streams. That is unbelievably problematic. So we have said that we will make investments for everyone, protecting middle-class families from tax hikes, fee increases, ensuring that the wealthiest and most profitable businesses pay their fair share for the services that they are using. We would make sure that our investment in services is financially sustainable, because we do have to stop the decades-long freezes and cuts. Our healthcare, our services cannot continue without investment. And if we're investing in public services, we're going to see the return on that. We're going to have lower wait times. We're going to have less stress on our hospitals. And overall, we're going to see the costs there come down. So if we're not doing this right, if we're not finding that balance, we're not going to grow as a society. So it's about finding that balance of investment.
Okay, McKinney Smith?
Okay, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, sure. It says, it's been said that the government is cash-strapped. What is the biggest reasons for that, and what is your government's plan to correct this to reduce the burden on this and the future generations?
Okay, well, being new to politics and new to the Liberal Party, I bring a fresh voice and a fresh perspective, and I would advocate for everything that the constituents that Oshawa needs, and I'm open to any conversation.
Okay, thanks very much. Bob Chapman.
Well, I think we have to stop adding to the debt is one of the big things by stopping all the deficit spending that we want to, where we want to give away everything. And nobody's talked about cuts in the PC party. It's the Liberals and the NDP that keep saying cuts. We're talking about the efficiencies and finding out where the taxpayers' money is going and making sure that it's spent properly. And if we do that and we do things like put money back into people's pockets through reduction in hydro rates, reduction in taxes where they'll spend more, which then will increase the economy in the sense of businesses, cutting those corporate taxes, adding to that industrial stabilization in hydro. We do all that, the job creators. You know, Mr. Ford was down in Niagara Falls the other day with a big sign that says, Ontario is open for business. And that's what we want to do. We want to attract that business so that we can get the revenues that we need to look after the people that live in Ontario with all the programs and services that they need, right? As well as having them pay the taxes, having the corporations pay the taxes, more of them, broader tax base, more money to spend on services and programs to get the economy going again. Surpluses. My God, I don't know if we want to say that in a budget situation, that there may be surpluses that we can start paying down the debt as opposed to all the deficits that the other two parties seem to want to add on over the next 4 years at least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good, thanks. Do you have a comment, John? No?
None that are appropriate.
Not going there, okay. All right, I think we've gone down the table on that. So the rules of the game earlier on tonight said that we could, the audience could actually ask the entire panel or an individual on the panel a question. So this is the first individual question I have received. This is for for Bob Chapman here, the PC candidate, and I'll just read it verbatim here. There's one word here I can't make out, so I'm going to have to skip over it. But it says, Mr. Chapman, when Doug Ford talks about something or other and bedroom deals, it harkens back to a man who recently said he would drain the swamp. He appears to be fueling partisan opposition rather than bringing Ontarians together. One seems to enjoy sounding like Donald Trump, which raises the question: how many other of Trump's traits does he have? Do you, sir, wholeheartedly support Doug Ford?
Yes. I think that Mr. Ford is business-minded. I think he is looking out for the people of Ontario with all the platforms that is out there. Yes, he talks about the backroom deals that have gone on, especially in the Liberal government over the last number of years. And we need to build trust, responsibility and accountability back in Queen's Park. And I think that's where his direction is heading. And at the doors, I've heard a lot of people in Oshawa from all party stripes that like Doug Ford, that think he is going to make a good premier to help put this province back on track.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. This is to do with employment lands, and McKinney will get you to kick this one off. It says, what will you and your party do to help with the freeing up of more employment lands through zoning and around the 407, for example? If more businesses located here, the masses wouldn't have to commute to Toronto.
Okay. Good question. Definitely open to hearing what they need in terms of that. But I know that with the new transit, bringing the 2 new GO stations to Oshawa, that'll help commuters being able to go in and out of the city easily in less time, so they can spend more time at home with their families.
Okay, very good. Bob, your thoughts on the question?
Yeah, I don't think it's about commuting, and I think it's about opening jobs up here in Durham Region and Oshawa. And I know both the City Council and the Regional Council have sent letters, resolutions to the Liberal government asking them to open up those employment lands across the 407. We have a good number of them up in North Oshawa, as they do across the region, Whitby, Pickering in particular, between where Seaton will be developed and the 407. We've asked them to open them up. What we need to do is open them up so that we can again entice businesses to come to Oshawa, so that we can get some employment, have some job creators here. And that's an important step, is opening them up with the proper planning process to make sure that we have the right industries or the right businesses in the right place in Oshawa that can coexist with whatever's already in the area, whether it be residential or whether it be other businesses or what. It's about opening those lands to get the job creators to move to Oshawa or Durham Region for that matter, because they'll employ, if they're from Ajax or Pickering, they'll employ people from Oshawa, and they won't have as far to drive as into downtown Toronto or in North Toronto. So we need to get them opened up as quickly as we can, get the zoning sorted out. That will be a step in the right direction to bring business, more business to Oshawa area.
Okay, Bob, thanks very much. Jennifer French, your thoughts?
Yep. Looking forward to being a partner with municipalities. I think municipalities, as we just heard from Bob, who's been, in this line of work for a while, but municipalities know what it is that they not just need, but what it is that they want to accomplish. The way that we are growing is different than they're growing up north and certainly in Toronto. So when you've had the government being a partner that is imposing, density restrictions and things like that, when they've never lived here, they don't know what it is we need. I think we have to be that listening partner and actually work with them. When it comes to employment lands and not just inviting business to our community, we have to be welcoming. And I think that all of the pieces when it comes to transit and having housing for those employees so that they can work here and live here, that has to happen together. We've already had a question tonight from our academic sector, from the post-secondary, and using them as partners as well. I don't mean to say one-stop shopping, but we have to be welcoming to employers and to business and use the resources, yes, that we have, but really connect with the experts. So our university and our colleges should be working in partnership with industry and business and potential employers so that the potential can be realized, because yes, we need job creation, but we also need people to be able to afford to live where they work, because we have so much growth potential here in this community. We're a good news story already, but we're a good news story that is waiting to happen. Other, parts west of us have already kind of reached their threshold for potential, and we are just getting started, and we are looking forward to being that partner with business, with all of our sectors, and ensuring that can happen.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Okay, we have another question on education, and Bob, I'll start you on this question. It says, what is your stance on education reform as it appears that the basics of reading, writing, and particularly mathematics I understand our elementary and probably high school students score poorly on standard testing.
Oh, sorry.
Your question, yeah.
Obviously, we need to bring that up, and one of the things is, as I understand some of the curriculum, is this discovery math that we're doing instead of some kind of regular math that perhaps I was taught. Unfortunately, when you look at the math scores, there's a lot of our youth that can't add properly without a computer or an adding machine. We need to change that. We need to improve those types of skills from the lowest level up as we're moving forward, in order to, again, it helps them in their later life, but also in their business and career life.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Okay, and Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, there are a few pieces to the question.
Sure. Do you want me to reread it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It says,
Yes,
what
please.
is your stance on education reform as it appears that the basics of reading, writing, and particularly mathematics, I understand our elementary and probably high school students score poorly on standard testing. Full disclosure, Jen in her past life was a teacher, so.
Full disclosure, Jen in her current life is still an educator at every opportunity.
There you go.
And I'm pleased to have the opportunity now. So first of all, we have committed to rewriting the education funding formula because our schools and our systems are not getting the funding that they deserve and need to be able to not just deliver the curriculum, but to be able to support all of our students as they absolutely need to reach their full potential. And that is for any student from any background with any challenges or journeys. Every child deserves to reach their full potential. We're planning to end EQAO testing and get back to putting giving teachers the professional discretion to be able to close the gaps for their students. When I was a teacher, full disclosure, being told how to close the gaps and not giving me the resources or the time to actually close them was the wrong way for me to support my students. So capping kindergarten class sizes at 26, a hard cap, not an average cap, but capping that, ending the kindergarten and grade 1 splits. We are going to do our best to end violence in the classrooms, which means appropriately resourcing and working with our frontline educators to make sure that can happen. And when it comes to getting back to basics, I kind of reject the premise that we're going to limit that to just 3 areas. The basics are about giving all of our students the opportunity and the pathway to reach their potential. Our scores don't, discovery math, you do want to discover math. It isn't about memorizing a times table, it's about being able to apply it in the real world and that path going forward. And we want to give all of our educators and our students the tools that they need and deserve, because education is the great equalizer and every child deserves to reach their full potential.
Okay, thanks very much, Jennifer. Makini, go ahead.
I'll have to agree with Jennifer in terms of getting the students the support that they need in order to reach their full potential. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I know how extremely important that is to support the teachers within the school and to work with them so the children can reach their full potential.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, I'd like to just shorten this next question. We're getting close to wrapping up here, and each of you has 2 minutes to close your statement. So let's just make this a 1-minute answer, and I'm not just sure who I ended up with last time. So I'll start with Bob anyways here on this. It says, regarding skilled trades, by 2025, it's projected that 41% of all the jobs will be in skilled trades. That can't come from post-secondary colleges. What will your government do to bring back skilled trades education throughout the public and secondary school system?
Well, I think that's a repeat of the other one there, and that's making things more modern. Yeah.
Maybe we should.
Yeah. Anyway, in our apprentice program, in our skills trades, in our college trades, bring them up to date, get away from the outdated things that have been used, make them more digital. so that both the person learning and the teacher has a better ground in the new technology that is coming forward in all the skilled trades. I mean, there are different skilled trades, you know, from you know, hammering a nail into a 2x4 and building a house, up to you know, the higher end that needs a lot of technical surveying and things like that. So I think we need to focus on some of that and bring those up in the colleges.
Okay, all right, McKinney, 1 minute on that.
Yep. Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
By 2025, it's projected that 41% of all jobs will be in skilled trades. That can't all come from post-secondary colleges. What will your government do to bring back skilled trades education throughout the public and secondary school system?
Okay. Well, I guess, like you said, it can't all come from our post-secondary education. Well, apprenticeship provides hands-on, rewarding experience for tomorrow's trade professionals. So we're going to continue investing in the apprenticeship strategy so that we can provide the in-demand training.
All right, very good. Jennifer French, 1 minute.
Okay, so there are lots of conversations about what the workforce could look like and might look like. So to hear that number of 41% being in the skilled trades, that's an interesting piece to that. The STEM, or the debate of STEAM, and putting arts in there as well. We need the focus to be on that hands-on, understanding, experiential pieces. And so in elementary school, inspiring all children, and male and female, inspiring all of our kids to actually imagine themselves doing jobs and being in pathways that they didn't imagine before. And it does start when they're young, because by the time they choose their high school courses, it might already be too late if they're choosing math, math programs or arts, and they're limiting themselves. So I think when you're starting in elementary school with that, curriculum focus, we have committed as a government to revamping the curriculum and ensuring that it meets the needs for all of our students. Oh, all right. Man, a minute goes by.
I know, it just goes quick. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so now we are just getting ready to wrap up, and as I said, in reverse order, we're going to do closing statements, 2 minutes. So, McKinney, you went last, so you're going to get to go first this time with your 2-minute closing statement, so go right ahead.
This is a defining election for Ontario and for Oshawa. We face a clear choice. Do we want care that works, or Doug Ford's cuts, or the NDP's dangerous inexperience with a complete $5.7 billion hole in their platform? I decided to run because I've seen the positive impact that our government's policies are having. When I pick up my son's asthma medication, I don't pay a cent, and neither do tens of thousands of parents across Ontario. As a single mother, it was tough to put myself through school. Our government is helping 13,000 single mothers go to college or university, unleashing their full potential. And when I made the decision to move here 10 years ago, I knew I was picking a good place to raise my family. Oshawa has prospered under the Liberal government, and this city's future is bright. We have the lowest unemployment rate in the province. Our investments have helped Oshawa's colleges and universities expand over 25,000 students, and we're now a destination to be the best and brightest in the world. And when those students graduate and they choose to stay in Oshawa or Durham region, they'll be entering a thriving housing market. Our fair housing plan has taken steps to ensure that this success is felt by everyone in our city. The non-resident speculation tax is driving down home prices for first-time home buyers pursuing their dream of home ownership. For those who don't want to buy, our plan for rent control gives tenants peace of mind. Thousands of renters in Oshawa want to know that we have their back and won't be forced out of their home by drastic rent hikes. I want to thank Bob and Jennifer for sharing their vision for our city tonight, and I also want to thank once again the moderator, Don Pittman, and the 3 event organizers, and of course to thank all of you for taking the time to come out and listen to your candidates to make an informed choice on June 7th.
Okay, thanks very much, McKinney. Jennifer French, go ahead.
Thank you again. My name is Jennifer French, and I have been so proud to serve as the MPP for Oshawa these past 4 years. I was also very proud to serve as an educator in this community for almost 10 years. I believe in strong public services. I believe in our communities, and I believe in the potential of all of the people in it, whether that is our children or whether that's our seniors or anyone in the middle. I believe in programs, including dental care and pharmacare, that doesn't leave anyone out, that does not put age restrictions on the services that people need. I know that as an NDP government, we will not only invest in our communities, but we will be partners with those communities. The kind of partner that doesn't just come to the table, but listens and works with frontline service providers, works with businesses, and all of those who are just trying to have a better life and more opportunity here in this province. It does not have to be a choice between bad and worse. It does not have to be a choice between same old and same old. It needs to be a more hopeful future, and that is what we are offering. The NDP has a platform that is fully costed. All of the numbers check out, despite what my Liberal counterpart read yesterday. We've defended it. Kevin Page, the former parliamentary officer, had said that all of our numbers check out. They're there. Our fiscal framework is here. If you are interested in how the numbers stack up and how on earth we're going to make all of this magic happen, it's laid out and it's real and it is a possible future. I'm looking forward to being a part of that government and serving the people here in Oshawa and making sure that I had promised 4 years ago to be a fresh, strong voice. I may not be so fresh anymore, but still looking forward to being that strong voice for us at Queen's Park as part of the new Democratic government, because we do deserve change, but it has to be change for the better.
Okay, Jennifer, thanks very much. Bob Chapman, the last word.
Thank you. Well, I've been a lifelong resident of Oshawa, and for almost all of my adult life, I've been involved in public service, whether it be in the military, serving my country, whether it be in the Durham Regional Police Service, serving the community of Durham Region, with most of my policing, actual street policing, being done here in Oshawa, or the last 7+ years as a member of the regional and city councillor for Oshawa and the Durham region. But I find public service is more of a calling and not a job, and that's why I'm still interested in helping Oshawa to move further from where we were with the Oshawa Municipal Council and where we are from the Durham Regional Council in helping sort out some of the issues that are at Queen's Park. And one of them is the high taxes, the wasteful spending, and the irresponsible deficits that both the NDP and the Liberals want to do to add to our debt. You know, I get the questions at the door. People talk to us about health care. They talk to us about hydro. They talk to us about child care. They talk to us about a number of things. But you know, not surprising to me, who is a fiscal conservative, people talk to me about the debt. I had a gentleman come into our campaign office the other day who said that he would benefit from either the Liberals or the NDP getting elected, but he wouldn't vote for them because he's so afraid of what his grandchildren are going to end up with. And that's what I'm fighting for here in Oshawa, is to make sure that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren can have those opportunities that my two colleagues spoke about without having to worry about all the debt around their neck dragging them down. Ontario is open for business. We need to create jobs, lower taxes, so that the people of Ontario can get the care and the programs they need in a responsible manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much wraps up the evening. I want to thank the audience out here at Lviv Hall for sending in the questions that they did. I also want to thank the Durham Region Association of Realtors, the Durham Region Home Builders Association, the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce, and of course our friends at Rogers TV who have taped this tonight, and it'll be available at rogerstv.com. Have a look and you can see the air times. So thanks very much. Make June 7th the day you do get out and vote. It's really critical this time around that everybody speak their mind. Thanks for watching. Have yourself a great night. Bye for now. Here we go.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
This May on Hollywood Suite On Demand.
One thing is for sure, they have a coven and they want my baby. It didn't die, you took it!
Telephone the police. Tell them there's a suitcase full of money and you don't want it.
Do you feel like we're sisters?
Welcome to the family.
Don't you ever think about belonging somewhere?
The price is too high.
Are you the author of the plays of William Shakespeare?
I am.
Then kiss me again, for I'm not mistook.
Hollywood Suite On Demand. Free with your subscription to Hollywood Suite.
In the modern day of smartphones, tablets, and much more, we might forget the power of the traditional book. We get you and the kids back in the books on the next topic.
So I went to the City of Toronto Archives just in preparation for our meeting and wanted to look at some of the records of the House of Industry. And it's actually wonderful to be able to actually see how the records are. You see these ledgers, you see what's written, and it's all handwritten, of course, you know. And so the years 1855, 1856, 1857, it's already 20 years roughly that the place has been running. But 1857 becomes a year of an economic crisis. So during a year of economic crisis, there's less employment, everything becomes multiplied. There are more people who want to come into the House of Industry, it's more, okay, so there's more pressure to take people in. And the way it ran was, I discovered, because it's written in the ledger, that there was a committee of 2 volunteers, in those years men, only men, who were set to meet weekly on Friday mornings and to assess the different cases and the different requests about the cases and to make decisions about yes to grant or not to grant resources or service or not service. One of the things that most struck me was the number of entries that related to children being apprenticed out, bound, as it said, to an outsider for work and hopefully training. Some were orphans, but not all were orphans. So case number 150, 2 children recommended for admissions by Reverend Burns, one 8 years old and the other 14 months. The father has signed the usual letter and given them to the institution to be bound out, Protestant. So 152, Jane Killaler, aged 5 years old, was given up to the house by the father who has signed the usual letter, admitted. Then there is a series of 3 entries by the same mother, and that I found very interesting, within a few days difference. 153, Mary Davis, has been an out pensioner on this charity for many years, has 2 children, and she wishes to put them into the house previous to their being bound out as apprentices, admitted. 155, Mary Davis, in 153, who has put her children into the house to be placed out under the provision of the Act of Incorporation and bylaws of the institution, when she understood that the committee would not bind themselves to retain the children in the city, she wished to remove them from the institution, was allowed to do so. 159, a few days later, Mary Davis brought her children back to the house with a view to get them into the orphan's home. May stay 4 weeks, and if not taken away at that time, let them be apprenticed out. So what you see here is both the quandaries of a parent, of a mother, about she cannot feed the children, she wants something for the children, she wants them to be taken off well. There are not many options. Either it's orphanage, in which case they will not be paid, or it's apprenticeship, in which case maybe they will get some training and they will receive food and lodging. And she's appalled that they will be sent out someplace in the country and she has no idea where, so she will not be able to see them during the duration of the apprenticeship. And then she sort of realizes she does not have any other options, so at least she tries the orphanage, But she knows, and she also sets limits. Otherwise, the children could be just kind of in between, in limbo. And if they are not taken into an orphanage arrangement, then okay, she accepts the apprenticeship and lets go of the other conditions that she tried to set up. It also shows you that in the early years, the House of Industry was aware of the difficulties of the parents enough to not simply kick her out, but to take the children, bring them back to the parents, says you can have them again, and then reconsider it again. So there was, and this I was quite surprised with. I think the organization became much more punitive and much more difficult once the population